J.J. Abrams brought Star Wars back with The Force Awakens back in 2015, and now he's closing everything out for the Skywalker saga this year with The Rise of Skywalker. But is he a different kind of Star Wars filmmaker? We are going to talk about that later in our discussion. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Resistance Broadcast. I'm John Hoey. Thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Thursday. We hope you have enjoyed your week. We hope you enjoyed our episode on Monday where we talked about a lot of the face value details about the Vanity Fair coverage. We speculated a bit, talked about the photos and what we think's going on. But now, today, we're going to be focusing a lot on JJ himself and making this movie compared to how he made The Force Awakens, using his quotes and what he's been saying and that sort of thing. And of course, a lot of fun stuff along the way. So thanks for joining us. Joining me, as always, James, Lacey, guys, welcome back. As always, The base is open. You guys are here. I'm here. Let's talk Star Wars. How you doing?
You know, I'd ordinarily say I'm excited to kind of have an open forum discussion about Star Wars, but that really was Monday's episode, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It was like not taking turns and trying to figure out what each person thought. It was just like, let's all talk about this crazy pictures and stuff. Lacey, how you doing this week?
I'm good. Just hanging out.
Good.
Still staring at the Kylo Ren pictures that we got a week ago. I've never wanted to be in the desert so bad.
All right. Well, we can send you there.
He's not there.
So, no problem. One-way ticket.
It was worth it just for the pause of both of you just being like, I'm trying.
Yeah. Jeez. Maybe we should just send you.
Yeah. We can desert her there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Here we go. We're starting it. We're starting it early today, folks. All right. So, guys, like I said, we are going to be getting into our discussion on JJ later. Hey, Bob. But now we are going to send it to James Bainey, who is going to do a special version of Will of the Force this week because I typically write show notes on Thursday, and Thursday was the hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen Day last week, and I did not have time to write them, so I left it up to our patrons to take us home.
What?
James, let's fire up Will of the Force this week, patron style.
I fear nothing, for all is as the Force wills it.
Yes! Patreon edition of Will of the Force. I'm hoping these questions are going to be they obviously will be a lot better than John's normal questions. Just kidding.
James,
Just kidding.
James, you know what? You should do that meme of the guy looking at the new girl, and it's our patrons.
Yeah.
And I'm the angry girl, and I'm looking at the guy like, what?
Yeah. What? Patron Will of the Force questions. John's regular Force Will of the Force questions.
James, how can they join people out there listening? How can they join to become one of these patrons submitting topics?
You can go to patreon.com and search for the Resistance Broadcast and join for just $2, which is a cup of coffee. John, I feel like you're going to talk about this later in the show, so we should probably do Will of the Force.
So subtle. It's just like just like smooth. Didn't even notice.
Oh, we're recording? I thought this was a casual conversation between the two of us.
Like butter.
All right. This week we got a couple questions coming from our friends, and the first one is from Phil3199, and they asked,
Hi, Phil.
Will the Knights of Ren be force sensitive or not? Love the podcast. Thanks for all the great content. John, I'm starting off with you on this one. Will the Knights of Ren be force sensitive or not? What do you think?
Yes. I think they will.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they will. I was going to say no, but you know what? I think they will, because I think Han implied that he left with a handful of his students. It would make sense that they were the Knights of Ren. Otherwise, does he just have a bunch of guys who are good at fighting? Like, it seems like they could get their butts whipped pretty easily if they don't have other powers. So if they're supposed to be, if he's supposed to be the master of this group, I would think some of them at least are force sensitive. So I will say yes, they are.
Lacey, what do you think?
I'm going to say yes, they will be force sensitive, because if they aren't, then they're just the Praetorian Guards, and those guys got sliced. So then
tomato sauce.
Yeah, it would literally be a repeat. So yeah, they have to be. Or at least some of them have to be. Because it would be boring otherwise. Also, they've built these guys up. Like, we're so pumped right now that we even have confirmation that they're in this movie, that they can't not have force powers.
Yeah.
Then what's the point otherwise?
And this isn't the question, but I could almost see us coming out and being like, I wish they would have done more with the Knights of Ren, you know? I could almost see that. But I think if they are to use them very little, then they have to make them force sensitive. I think there's going to be something here. I think they could easily pull in that thread of like the Inquisitors, where it's like they're not Sith, but they're like dark force users kind of thing.
Yep.
And I think, John, you nailed it with the, like, he took a handful of his students, like, then where did they go? You know, that's just another unanswered question. So I definitely think these guys are going to be force sensitive. It would be cool if they were just fighters, but I don't know, man. I want to see something be like, ooh, these guys.
Yeah.
It also makes me think of Solo with Infus Nest, where all her like warriors have masks on and you don't know who they are, and then they take all their masks off and they're different species and they come from different backgrounds. I see that very similarly with the Knights of Ren.
Oh, you think one could be a creature?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Possibly.
I was thinking, I was full like human, like for some reason.
No, I think they're all different.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool.
I mean, also the Inquisitors are like that. Like they all have the masks on, but they're all different species. So
wait till they're not force sensitive and people like there's 7 of them and people spend like $170 on Black Series figures of them and they're like, this was a waste of my money. These normal garbage.
Come to
soldiers.
think of it, if I'm not mistaken, I think only one Inquisitor is a person, like a human. They're almost all alien species.
Now you're saying they are Inquisitors, so let's.
No. I know. I'm just saying it's
he's drawing comparison.
Speaking of Inquisition,
Scott Schneider is our next submitter of Will the Force topics, and Scott asked us, more Knights of Ren's questions are coming from the Vanity Fair coverage. Will Kylo have to fight the Knights of Ren in the return or the Rise of Skywalker, the return of, I don't know why I said that. It's because you abbreviated it as TRoS.
The return of the Mac.
The return of the Mac. Lacey, you're getting this question first. We talked about the variety thing, but is Kylo Ren going to have to fight the Knights of Ren?
Yes, I think he will fight the Knights of Ren because he's going to have to defeat them to get redemption. And I also think that they're going to turn on him at one point in this movie. So, yes. We all want that big fight scene that we were somewhat leaked for The Last Jedi where Luke was fighting the Knights of Ren. Like, we all loved that idea, so I don't know why they wouldn't do it in this one. All
right, John, you're up. What do you think?
Man, it just seems like it's again, this is the Paige Tico dying thing that everyone's calling, right? And then everyone's like, I called it. It's like, but everyone called that. It's like, check that off the list. So this seems like everyone thinks this is going to happen, which makes me wonder if it is. I think he will. I think he will have to. He won't have to fight them, but I think he will fight them at some point. But I kind of hope not, just because I feel like we all think it will happen. So I just want I want to be surprised. But if I had gun to my head, lightsaber to my throat, I think he will.
All right, here's why you both are wrong. I think that he's not going to fight these guys because they're the bad guys and he's the bad guy. And I'm doubling down on that he's the bad guy thing. I think the only reason you would think this is if you're going the Ben-Demption route, that he would have to kill him off. And I think this is too similar to he shows up and he's got the Knights of Ren behind him and then he starts flicking the lightsaber and then he uses it to cut through him, you know what I mean? And he turns on the person who was supposed to be on his side. And I'm like, we've seen this. That was in the last movie. And that was the surprise reveal that he killed someone on his side, or that
Sure.
he fought against someone on his side.
Right.
So I'm saying no, he's sticking to these guys, and they will be killed, or maybe they just run away and we don't know what happened to him, and that's a story for another time or whatever. But I don't think they're massively important to the story. I think they're just going to be there.
Action
But
figures.
let's move on to the next one. We got another one coming from Todd Desgrosseilliers. Is that how you say it?
Desgrosseilliers, well done.
Desgrosseilliers. And this one is about Matt Smith. If anybody doesn't know, Matt Smith is or is not in this movie. Will Matt Smith have a significant role in The Rise of Skywalker, given he was excluded from the Vanity Fair coverage and there still isn't any official confirmation he is tied to the movie? John, this one's going back to you first. What do you think about Matt Smith showing up in The Rise of Skywalker?
I don't watch any of those shows he's on. I don't care how good people tell me those shows are.
Are you talking about Doctor Who?
Is that the one he's on?
Yes.
One of them.
Yeah. They couldn't even name that show.
He's on that and The Crown on Netflix.
Yeah. Like Doctor Who, like at least name your doctor before I'm going to watch your show, okay? I think he is going to be in this movie, but I hope. There's a lot of people rumbling around that they think he's going to play like a young Palpatine, like a Godfather 2 scenario. I don't like that. I'd rather that they de-age Ian McDiarmid because he's my dude. He's my emperor. Hashtag not my emperor, I guess, for Matt Smith here. So I think he's going to be in it. I just hope not the way I'm hearing about it. But yeah, I think he will be. And what was the question? Will he have a significant role?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he will, but I hope not.
All right, Lacey, what do you think about Matt Smith showing up in this movie?
I think Matt Smith is showing up in the movie. I think, he did an interview a couple months ago and was very like, I don't know, am I? And everyone was like, ugh, just give us a yes or no. And then, Lev Grossman from Vanity Fair asked, one of the first questions he asked was, is Matt Smith in this movie? And then Disney just ignored the question like he didn't say it. So I think he is in the movie. I think he's in a significant role. I've been reading a bunch of different theories and that have like Palpatine body possessing people. But I kind of liked the idea of him being a Knight of Ren that might turn on Kylo Ren.
Well,
I don't know if I'm for the body possession part because people are claiming like, oh, what if Palpatine possesses him and then he fights Kylo? It could happen. I could see that happening, but I do like the idea of him being a Knight of Ren that will turn on Kylo Ren.
Mm-hmm. I think
imagine
you're both
he's staring at us in one of those pictures, like in the Knight of Ren picture is Matt Smith staring at us.
And he was also at Celebration, like walking around.
He's the horse that.
No, I'm saying like in the Knight of Ren picture.
I know.
There's one of them that's staring directly at the camera. Imagine if that's Matt Smith, and he's just like, "Hey, suckers!"
Or the only one who's not facing the camera,
with his back to the
totally
camera,
with his back turned to the camera,
and he's the one with the axe from Solo.
Yeah, maybe.
No, that is the guy with the axe from Solo. It's the guy with the back to the camera.
No, I mean maybe it's him.
Cuckoo. I honestly think that's true. Book it. He's in that photo. We don't know which one it is.
Lacey's like that GIF with all the calculations going up right now. Just like trying to put everything together. Like
it's like your brain is connecting dots, but then the back part of your brain can't keep up, and you just what?
Matt Smith is a Knight of Ren, and he's in that photo, and we don't know which one he is. And the reason JJ is talking to that one is because it's Matt Smith.
Yeah, could be. I think you guys are bang on with this as far as him being in the movie, because it's weird, right? It's like Brendan Fraser's gonna be in this movie, and it's like Brendan Fraser being like, what? No. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's like why was there smoke at all around this character? And then he does this interview and he's like, I don't think I'm in it. Like, what?
Am I?
That's weird. Yeah. Sounds like you're in it and you're just trying to like avoid the question in a weird way.
Honestly, didn't they kind of screw this up? Like, shouldn't they have just said, tell people you're in it and that's it? And then people have been like, oh, he's playing a first order button
Guy.
pusher.
Yeah.
But now that
maybe.
they've screwed it up where they're like, wait, don't, they leaked it. Don't say a word. And then people are like, wait a minute. You're playing
Yeah. I mean,
30-year-old Palpatine.
there's always that possibility too, where they're like, no one's really talking about it, honestly. Like, we're talking about it, but nobody's like, I don't know. They just don't want Vanity Fair running and asking questions about it, because then all of a sudden it's on everybody's mind.
I'm seeing my brother soon, and he loves Star Wars. If I'm like, dude, Matt Smith might be in episode 9, he'd be like, who? I don't care.
Yeah.
Darth Vader.
All right, let's move on to Tampa Movie Guy's question.
Hi, Tampa.
Coming in, asking a question for us. This question is about Keri Russell's character. They said, will Keri Russell's character, the masked scoundrel Zorri Bliss, be a lovable scoundrel like Han, or a scoundrel to be feared? This one's going to Lacey first. Lacey, what do you think?
I think she will be a masked scoundrel that never takes her mask off, and she will be feared and a bad guy and not a good one. You don't go hanging around Thief's Quarter on a cold planet if you're a good person. Just saying. Go ahead, John.
John, what do you think?
I think she will be a feared villain type of character. I think because we've been saying Star Wars has a villain problem, and Sheevy Babes coming back definitely helps that.
Now they're doing
capacity.
Bad Matt Smith, bad Richard Grant, bad
Correct.
Keri Russell,
Yeah, you got
Palpatine.
It's like signing all the free agents. And Tampa Movie Guy, you know about that because your team, the Rays, stink, and the Yankees are winning the AL East.
JJ's
But-
collecting all the Infinity Stones with bad people.
Oh, bad guys, yeah. Yeah. He's like, I got my Zorri, I can snap people out of here. Yeah, I think she is going to be bad. I think she will be, she'll be like Zam Wessel from Attack of the Clones, but a way cooler and more involved character, I think. Maybe she's an assassin type of thing too. Like, I think that'd be kind of cool. Maybe she's assigned by Kylo Ren to assassinate Rey. How about that?
He already talked about how they have camaraderie. Why would
That
he
seems
assign
weird.
someone to kill her?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Go back on your
Also,
own
I think
arguments,
he could
John.
do it himself.
In The Last Jedi, he said he loved his dad and he stabbed him through the heart.
No, he said he didn't hate them.
He doesn't hate Rey.
All right.
You don't use the term camaraderie and then hire someone to kill someone. Get out.
Assassination.
Get out of here.
So I between the two options, I think what it actually will be is scoundrel to be feared at first, and then by the end, when she actually does take the mask
Enfys
off.
Nest.
See, okay, here's the thing. When this character was first pitched to me, this is kind of what I pictured. And it was the How to Train Your Dragon 2, where it's like you have this villain character who then reveals themselves, but there was like a bigger villain. But when they revealed themselves, that person ended up being very close to the main character. So you could see this be someone who was associated with Rey in a positive way. But we're supposed to fear him at the beginning, so there's like a history to that character. This is maybe why.
Yeah, but
they
the question
were involved
isn't
with Rey
one
at
and
some
then the
point.
other. The question is yes or no.
Yeah.
So pick a side,
So
Baney.
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I thought I already did pick a side, Lacey, and I told you what it was a few minutes ago, which is lovable scoundrel. It has to be because that's the end of the story that we're going to get with that character. But you're right, though. That is very Enfys Nest.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of the taking the helmet off and then all of a sudden this scary person becomes someone relatable. So, all right. Last one is coming from Dani Alaniz, I guess.
Who
Alaniz?
also
Is
got
that how you say it?
retweeted by Ron Howard.
Ooh,
Yes.
Danny.
Yeah. Only 3 people as far as if I remember correctly. And Danny was one of them. So shout out there. This question is, in the art of the Force Awakens book, there is a concept art drawing of the Millennium Falcon going underwater to explore the Death Star. Having this in mind, will we see this happening in The Rise of Skywalker? Lacey, is this one for you?
Nope, John goes first.
John. John goes first on this one. What do you think, John? Set the tone.
I don't think we're going to see the Falcon go underwater. I think they're going to park it safely outside so it doesn't get rust. And then Rey's going to go swimming or something like that. But I think it'd be cool if the Falcon went underwater, but I don't know if that's necessary. It would feel a little bit Kessel Runny to me, I think, if they did that with the whole crew in the cockpit in a dark, murky place and that sort of thing. Or like episode 1 where they're swimming past jacked fish. Jacked
What an
fish.
amateur.
I'm gonna say,
God,
you know
what
what?
an
You know what?
idiot.
Just for kicks, because I think it would be cooler if they did. It's like Days Confused. It'd be cooler if you did, man. I will say, Dani, I think the Millennium Falcon will go swimming in The Rise of Skywalker to help them find something under the water.
You just said no, and now you're saying yes?
I changed it. How about that? Free
Is
world.
that your final answer? Yes?
Lesson learned, Gillerin. Yeah.
Okay. James, you want to go next?
I can go next. I hadn't thought about this until this question was posed, because those, those like Art of Star Wars books, I'm not like, oh, let's see what we can pull from these, because they're not really anything. But I do like the idea of seeing the Millennium Falcon go underwater for the first time. It kind of reminds me of like Resistance, the show. Like they have this ship and it's underwater, and then like it comes out and it's like a starship. And I don't know, that's kind of cool to think one that we've so familiarized with flying through the air could also be used as like some sort of submersive vehicle.
Sure.
So I am actually down with the idea of that if they did decide to go that route. What do you think, Lacey? You're last.
I just can't see the Falcon going underwater because it's so old and it's junky, and I could see leaks happening where there's water, but that might be funny if that does
Yeah.
happen.
See like Chewie plugging up something.
Yeah, and
or that-
BB-8
or the
like rolling
Porg.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just can't see it. I think it's because I'm immediately going to the Phantom Menace, where they're in that ship that can go above water, but it doesn't really fly through the air. It's like specifically an underwater ship. So no, I don't think it will. I think it would be cool to see, but I don't think they're going to do that.
I think JJ.
All right.
The reason why I changed my mind is 'cause I think JJ may do it because it's never happened.
Oh, that is true.
Mhm.
And JJ loves to be that guy that's like, oh, you thought one thing? Let me change your mind completely.
Like we're using the Falcon again, but what can we do that they've never done?
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Yep, that's what I said. All right. That wraps up our special Patreon edition of Will of the Force, and we are going to continue the Patreon love as we move on to the Patreon Pod Race, which is our segment that we do for generals, and they get their opportunity to come on the show. We pitch them a question. We ask them to tell us what they think about this crazy, wacky situation. And this week we asked General Len Brown if he is concerned about R2-D2 missing from the Rise of Skywalker trailer. So we're going to shoot it over to Len Brown to ask him exactly that.
The gang asked me if I am concerned with R2 not appearing in the Rise of Skywalker trailer. I am. I mean, look no further than The Last Jedi. R2 had a grand total of 1 minute and 25 seconds of screen time in that movie. That is 5 seconds less than everyone's favorite A-Wing pilot, Tally. I mean, look at what he accomplished in episodes 1 through 6. He fought in 5 major battles, rescued someone at least once in every movie. I mean, this is the droid that knew Yoda and Obi-Wan's revived Order 66, knew that Luke and Leia were siblings and said nothing. If James and Lily Potter used R2 as a secret keeper, they would still be alive. At this point, R2 needs to fly in at the end of the movie, single-handedly win the war against the First Order while rescuing Rey, Finn, and Poe. Please, more R2. Like Luke Skywalker said at the end in Empire Strikes Back, R2, where are you?
Wow. Wow. So a lot was said. Tali Lintra makes a guest appearance. Luke and Leia. We had a little Harry Potter in that one.
I love that Len printed out he used his printer ink to print out a picture of Tali Lintra.
What a waste of ink.
Holy moly.
Yes.
Waste.
Len, you should have just scooped out ashes from your fireplace.
I know, it's more realistic.
Yeah.
Yes,
Bounce
Len is a big
She's dead.
R2-D2 fan. This is why we asked him the question, and he is obviously very concerned with R2 and needing to make an appearance in this movie. What do you guys think about what John had to say about R2? Or Len. I said I'm shooting to John.
John, what do you think?
Wait, are we confirming for the first time in this podcast that I'm gonna get to do a Patreon pod race?
No.
All right.
James just got your name wrong. You're the flavor of the week.
Yeah, I think Len is absolutely right. We have a hero that doesn't get his due all the time just because he's a droid, and R2 has been there since the beginning. And I've said this trilogy has been missing one thing, and that's 3PO and R2 together and being involved and being the comedic relief, but also being big cogs in what the rebellion and resistance is doing. So I think Len, you're spot on with that. So I've been behind you all the way, so I'm sure you're not surprised by my answer. And way to wear that Make Solo 2 happen shirt. Good stuff, Len.
Yeah.
Nice. Am I going now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I think, Len, first of all, you did an amazing job for your first pod race. Well done, new general, sir. I completely agree with you that R2 is not in these movies enough. I was kind of surprised that at Celebration we were introduced to Dio, because I was like, oh, so we're getting another pizza cutter Little Caesars droid? Like, I just want R2. Why can't we just have R2 with BB-8? Why does it have to be this, like, thing that comes out? I don't know. I'm not really into it, but how dare you print out a tally? It's like such a waste of ink.
Gosh.
I just like it.
You're giving him the reaction he wanted, Lacey.
Len, put that baby in a frame and bring it to Celebration next year and give it to Lacey.
Yeah.
I can't
Lacey
believe.
will sign it for you.
James, before we move on, I think I want to get this out of the way now, since this has been a patron-heavy first half of the episode. I do want to thank all of our patrons over at patreon.com/resistancebroadcast. If you haven't checked it out yet, hop over. We have new content every day, new videos from all three of us together, three of us separate. Also, you can get involved in the podcast just like Will of the Force by tier 2 and above. And our generals, obviously tier 5, get to be on the podcast, as you just saw Len. And Monday, foolish of me, I can't believe I did this, I forgot to thank our Patreon generals. So I want to thank Carmelo, Brian Shalito, Don Boring, Aaron Quinton, Andrew Staley, Len Brown, Neil Lowry, and Val Trichkoff. A lot of generals now. Thank you guys so much for your support and being generals, being on the pod races, and doing all you do to support us. We recently hung out with Mello in person, which is unbelievable. So thank you guys so much, and thanks to all our patrons.
All right. Well, that's it for the Patreon pod race. Let's head into that discussion, John. What do you think? What do you got set up for us this week?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
J.J. Abrams' approach to making The Rise of Skywalker. In 2015, J.J. Abrams was tasked with reviving Star Wars from a franchise that was once thought to be complete. He pulled that off in the wildly critical and financially successful The Force Awakens. And now in his recent interview with Vanity Fair, Abrams touched on having a different approach to making The Rise of Skywalker, not only because it is the end instead of the pseudo-beginning, but because he feels more of a willingness to widen the net and explore new ideas. He gets into it in more in-depth, so let us get more in-depth on this right now by talking about the differences that we think in JJ's potential approach in making The Rise of Skywalker compared to how he made The Force Awakens. So who wants to kick it off here? And let's dive in right now.
I am kind of surprised that he's going with so much new in this movie, because I feel like for the past few months we've kind of been talking, where is JJ going to go? And we kept saying, like, there's no way he'd introduce all these new characters and new planets and new stuff, because they're trying to wrap things up. There's so much to wrap up. And yet here we are. We have Dio, Jana, Claude, like Corey Bliss, all these people.
New planets.
Knights of Ren, Pasana, Kamiji. Like, I'm very surprised at how much new is going into this movie, because it's a wrap up. It's not a new beginning.
Right.
But at the same time, I think going into this movie, he was so cautious to not rehash things, because that was the biggest criticism with The Force Awakens, was that it's a rehash of A New Hope. I love that movie, but so I could see him being like, oh, well, I don't want to rehash, so I'm going to do new. But then I have this like kind of like weird like fear that he's going to do too much new, and we're going to be left with like a Lost scenario where we're like, wait, nothing was answered.
Interesting.
I don't think that's the case, but there's a small part of me that's like, do you need all these new characters?
But
I guess it's because it's been a year.
Yeah.
Supposedly, you're going to meet new people in a year.
Yeah. I'm curious. I think you're onto something. I'm interested to see how he's going to use the old, because you take something, for instance, like Return of the Jedi, right? And so at the time this was wrapping up that trilogy, and you maybe hear in a report that they're going back to Tatooine.
Right.
So is your thought of like, oh, that's cool, like it ends where it begins? Well, how they actually used Tatooine in that movie, like, wasn't really quite like, it wasn't like they went to Endor and then they wrapped up the final fight on Tatooine,
right,
and it like ended where it began. They used it like in a weird way, like it almost didn't even have to be Tatooine, but it was for some reason, you know? So there's certainly things like that, but I definitely think that one of the more interesting quotes coming out of JJ was that, he made Force Awakens with this idea of what a Star Wars movie is supposed to be. And then he saw what Rian Johnson did, and he goes, okay, like, I like that. I see where he's going with this. He kind of led me in a direction where I feel a little bit more free to kind of do what is right for a movie, for a film, and introduce things. And I'm taking words out of his mouth. He didn't say this, but for instance, the big one for me is like a flashback. I can't do flashbacks, so I come up with this weird like kind of force thing so I can kind of maybe tell a story like that. But then Ryan's just like, heck, I'm doing flashbacks. So he's like, cool, all right, well. Right.
And all new force powers, like all new things we've never seen.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like when the food gets put out and like no one wants to be the first one to get up and get it. And then Ryan's like, I'll have the first slice. Like, that's cool. JJ's like, I'll have 3 now. Sure.
So he says, we're doing things like with different camera angles and things like that could easily still be a Star Wars movie, because of course it is. Look at the characters, look at the costumes, look at the, everything. But it's different in a sense of I'm using my gut to tell the best story I can.
Yeah, I could have never imagined Rey jumping over a TIE fighter or a TIE silencer. Like, that never would have if you asked me what Rey could do force power wise, or like what cool move she's going to pull in this movie, that never would have crossed my mind.
I think we're going to see way more weird stuff than that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be like the first thing where we're like, oh, she can do that. And then later we're going to be like, well, then of course she could do that because she did this. But I think, like, Lacey, you said the time jump thing. I think, like I said, JJ can cheat with that a little bit with our heroes, but he can also cheat with that with the new characters, where we can hear Poe say, like, oh, Zorri Bliss is back again. Like, oh, remember that time and blah, blah, blah. So we can know that our characters know these characters already, even though they may meet Jana during this movie. They may already know about Pride because he's been taking over the First Order stuff.
You mean like Enfys Nest? Like someone that's already been...
Yeah, exactly. Like Kylo Ren may have brought in Pride because he had issues with Hux, and we find that out just through like a nod in one quote, and JJ's good at kind of doing that sort of thing.
Right.
And then what JJ's talking about in terms of like making this movie because of like, how Ryan did this, Ryan did that. And it makes me think of that quote where he's like, he had read the script for episode 8 and he's like, I wish I directed this movie. So it clearly seems to me that he did enjoy what Ryan did, not to upset anybody who's against that, not to worry anybody that if you didn't like The Last Jedi, you're not going to like this. JJ's his own movie maker still. But the final part of that about this is that he really is hammering home that this is about the new generation. And that goes to what we were saying about how this is being promoted too. Because the leaked poster we saw has all the new characters on it from this trilogy. The mural at Celebration has all the new characters. The teaser prominently featured our new characters here with sprinkled in of, Luke voiceover and Leia the hug and that sort of thing. And we've heard from people in the know that JJ really controlled how the teaser was cut, and he chose 1 out of 3 cuts. So he was probably clearly also very involved in how they marketed this thing too. JJ is very hands-on and likes to be controlling in that way. So he is saying, these are my characters. I believe in them, and we're going to market this movie, and it's going to kill it at the box office, not being reliant heavily on our old characters. Though they will be involved, this is their story now. And that's the part, hearing him say that, even though we assume that, hearing him say that in these quotes, I like hearing that, because as we've been saying, Star Wars moving forward, in order to do that, it needs to be fresh, and we need new characters to get behind. We can't keep relying on the old guard. As we're seeing, Peter Mayhew just passed away. These people aren't going to be around forever. So if Star Wars is going to live on, we need the next generation to step up, and it looks like they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. James, anything?
I really like that. One of the first things we got out of Celebration was him saying, like, we start this movie off with the 3 of them together, as a group, as a family, if you will. And since it's about his approach to making this movie as opposed to the other one, he definitely had to start 3 characters out not knowing each other at all. And it's interesting because he doesn't really get to tell the in-between. These 3 characters, by the end of the movie, the only people who really had any sort of confrontation, I mean, Finn had a little bit with Rey and Poe with a little bit with Finn, but Rey not at all with Poe, So you have kind of a disconnect where even in that movie, some of these characters didn't even really get to hang out with each other. And then in this movie, you have to just start it off with a complete, they're all best friends, So the approach to this movie is completely different in the sense of like how I'm going to tell a story between the main 3 characters. And I understand that Kylo Ren is a main character as well. I'm just talking about like the good guys, or if you will.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting too that JJ, when you're hearing like Oscar Isaac talk about the process with JJ, it seems like from JJ telling Vanity Fair that he's going more with his instinct or his gut than before with this one. I think that's reflective in the way that the actors and the cast have responded to the movie as well, because Oscar's been talking about for weeks, anytime he gets asked about Star Wars, he's saying that like they were allowed to ad-lib more. They were allowed to have their own moments or ask questions. And John Boyega is saying, I got to sit down with JJ and ask him about Palpatine. Like, it seems like JJ's more open with this one than The Force Awakens. And I think it's due to that fact that he had that stress and pressure to deliver a reawakening, so to speak, of Star Wars with The Force Awakens. Whereas this one, they're kind of giving him the reins and being like, this is your time to figure this out and finish this out for everyone. And he's letting people explore their characters in ways they couldn't before because he had to set everything off in the right direction. Whereas this is finishing everything up. And I think you're seeing that. Even I made the joke on Monday about the video, but in all the videos, he looks at the video clips from Vanity Fair, he looks very comfortable, very happy, very like, hey, we're here doing this really cool thing together. Whereas I feel like in The Force Awakens, when you see that behind the scenes footage, he's always like in a director's chair and he's like very like technical and he has this little clipboard. This one, he was just like, hey, what's up? Welcome to my set. These are my people.
Yeah, it's probably like one of those things where it's like this may be the last time he does a Star Wars movie and he's enjoying the ride kind of thing. And the actors probably felt that way too. And, also the pressure, with The Force Awakens, you know, JJ, by the way, we just spent $4 billion on this thing, so don't screw it up. You have to bring Star Wars back from the dead. And now he's probably walking around like Kathy shows up. She's like, JJ, should we be doing that? And he's like, all right, Kathy, this is what I want you to do. That's how he does it in his voice. Go to boxofficemojo.com and let me know what the number one movie domestically all time is. I'll wait. And she's like, damn it, JJ. You're right. You did it. And all joking aside, like Daisy and John were both kind of new, so he was coaching them along in a sense in the first one, and he even said Daisy was kind of wooden at the beginning, and now he has seasoned actors and he's more comfortable, so that's a big part of it. And he has less to prove. Like the beats that he put out there during making The Force Awakens, it almost felt like it was an apology tour of Star Wars, where he's like, we're going back to practical effects. We're bringing it back to Star Wars the way it used to be. And this is what we're going to do. For those who didn't like the prequels, we're putting Jar Jar dead in the corner of the sand, and we're doing all this. And now it's more like, all right, so people like the prequels, and like, I don't need to prove that Star Wars is back. We kind of did that, and he's like more relaxed now. So I think that's all the reason why he's not like trying to prove anything anymore. The chains are off, and that spawns into him being able to test the waters a little bit, and he has a little bit of capital to work with because he was so successful, and everyone loves JJ in Star Wars now. Besides John Williams, right under that, I would say JJ Abrams in terms of being untouchable. Unless this movie stinks, of course. But
I think he's having more fun with it from what I've seen. And even at Celebration, like they brought Stephen Colbert in, he's cracking jokes about like Adam Driver's lightsaber and stuff. And JJ's just there having a good time. Whereas I feel like even the panel for The Force Awakens at Celebration was very rigid and very like, go by the book. These are the questions you need to ask. And it felt more fun and like relaxed this time around with what's being said. You know, even JJ setting up a Twitter for this one, even though he didn't use it, JJ, what's going on? He set up a Twitter and he's like, you know, putting out teasers and photos and all this other stuff. Whereas I feel like The Force Awakens, it was very close, like nothing at all.
Yeah, he would tweet a couple things from Bad Robot, like here's a napkin that looks like it might be next to the chessboard, the dartboard, you know. But
right.
You know, this whole concept of how you handle the mentality of going into this movie differently than the last one, and this is, get ready for a terrible analogy, but bear with me.
At least you warned us.
I feel like I don't know. It's interesting to me to like see a series of movies and like there's a trilogy and it's about Bob and he's a candlestick maker, and then they make another one that's like. You know, Bob the Second, and he's a baker or something, you know? And then they're like, JJ, what do you want to do with this? And he's like, I guess Bob the Third. Like, it just seems obvious, I guess Bob the Third. And then they're like, yeah, and you could take it in any direction you want. And he's like, okay, he makes shoes, right? It's like, whatever. I'm just kind of setting it up. But then when he comes back to like finish that Bob the Third's story, they're like, okay, cool. So it's Bob the Third. We've got a lot of questions about him, and he makes shoes. Now, how does that tie into the other two Bobs? And how does it tie into candle making? And how does it tie into bread making and stuff? And he's like, dude, I don't know. I didn't sign up for that.
I don't know either.
It's a totally different mentality.
The question is, when
creating a new trilogy versus wrapping up
9 movies,
character story, and then also all the other stories. It's just, I don't know. There's a certain freedom with the like, I don't know, Bob the Third, he makes shoes, whatever. But then to put everything back on the end of that story is like crazy.
That was the weirdest analogy you've ever given, and you lost.
I was trying to make it as simple as possible, and I didn't want to be like, well, he got Anakin, and then Anakin, and people, I don't know, would go off. So I tried to just be like, story 1, story 2, story 3. They're all different, but they all need to be the same.
You can tweet James at Banana 2019.
Banana 2019.
Yeah, that's not an account, so don't do that.
I don't know. This the whole thing with JJ, I think, and you know, we didn't even talk about this much at all on Monday, and I feel like it's being glossed over because maybe it's just me who's glossing over it, but the whole like handling of Leia thing, I think is going to be very important. I don't think she's going to be in this movie a lot because they can't do that. But I think how we're hearing they're using her and utilizing her, and how we speculated and how we think that they're going to do things here on the podcast really shows the trust that they have in JJ, because unless she was lying, Kathleen Kennedy said, we're not doing any kind of CG with her. We're never going to recast her or anything like that. And now I think, and that was with Trevorrow on board, and now that JJ is in the mix, he probably said, like, look, Kathy, like, we can't tell this story without doing something. We need a little CG. We maybe need a little voice actors to help us out here. We need to do a lot to make this work and bring the magic to bringing her to life here. And they probably bent on that. So I think we're going to see a crazy amount of stuff to bring Leia to life, whether it's not going to be a little or a lot or whatever, what have you. But I think we're going to be shocked at what we see, to the point where we're going to be talking about that coming out of the movie more than a lot of things. And I think that element of Kathy changing her tone on what she said about how they're handling Leia to what we're going to see is proof of their faith in what JJ's able to do, as opposed to how they were maybe thinking with Colin Trevorrow. So I think that's going to really tell a lot about their trust in how he was able to sell them on this story and using Keri in different ways in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they might actually pull it off. Because I remember JJ, one of the quotes he said was, it was like finding an impossible answer to an impossible question or impossible situation, something along those lines. And how much more impossible can you be than someone coming along and saying, you need to put Keri in this movie, but you can't use any CG or any sort of like recreation of
Body
that character.
double, yeah.
Yeah, body double, stuff like that. And they're like, all right, so what are we going to do? And then he tells the story about, he goes back and he looks at this footage and he's like, I can do this. I can cut this stuff up.
Yeah.
I can put her in the movie. And that has been how they talk. They've been like, every time that she's ever brought up in these things, it's that it's weird and surreal because that's really her. It's really her acting. And they never even lightly touch on, well, sometimes we had to, you know what I mean, here and there. But for the most part, no, it's like, I think they really did it following those restrictions. You're not allowed to recreate her in any way, and I think they did it.
Yeah, the interesting thing that sticks out to me, though, from the Vanity Fair footage of JJ talking about it, is that he said that he only pulled footage from The Force Awakens and put it down on a reel and looked at that specific footage. Now, I don't know if you guys listening remember, we talked to Clayton, I think it was August of this past year, and he talked about how he had spoken to Todd Fisher, Carrie Fisher's brother, and he had said that it was both Force Awakens and The Last Jedi footage. But then this past week, JJ said he only looked at Force Awakens footage. Like, I feel like he would have said, I looked at all the footage we have of Keri. But he said, I went back and looked at Force Awakens footage.
Yes, I do agree with that. But from the weird certain point of view, I think he's just telling the story as it happened, like in chronological
instead of
order.
saying like something
thought,
specific.
I went back, I looked at the footage that I had from the movie that I shot before.
Was there?
And then like there's 5% missing here. Maybe we can get something from
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there a photo or a shot that they showed in the Vanity Fair coverage at some point of Carrie Fisher?
Yep.
Yeah, it was with John Williams. She's standing up and she's in front of like a jungle background, probably before she talks to Rey.
And she has her hair looks like her hair from The Last Jedi in that shot.
It does. It does.
So
and she's wearing a purple
I didn't look
dress.
that deeply at it.
I think that is proof that they are using TLJ stuff to help move this along here.
Yeah, maybe it was more of JJ saying, we looked at Last Jedi, we have all this footage, and I was like, we need one more piece to finish the puzzle. So that's when he went back to Force Awakens.
They could maybe use a double for like behind her. So if they're showing a scene where Leia's like walking through somewhere and
I thought you said they used Billy maybe.
I think they did. They may have used her as a stand-in or something like that for eye level stuff. But I could totally see if they're not able to get a scene that they maybe wanted where Leia is interacting with Kylo Ren literally, they could see her going somewhere that he's been and seeing something he's done and like looking at it in that sort of way. So she's kind of connecting with him in that way. They're going to figure it out. And I mean, what they're saying is that it's like unreal what they were able to do. So
that's the word everyone keeps using.
I think I really think that may be what people walk out of that theater talking about. And if they pull it off, it's like that talk about The Empire Strikes Back. They're like, if we could pull Yoda off, we are going to crush it. And when people loved what they did with Yoda, it was a huge hit. And I think that's going to be a big part of this with the Leia thing too. Because a lot of people, me included, the Rogue One Leia thing, I was happy to see it.
It took me off. It took me
They
out.
should have left
when they
it
from the back.
Yeah, they should have left it from behind her. Like, you didn't need to show the face. So as long as they do it right, and I'm not like, that looks like weird. It looks like her, but they're doing something that's going to take me out of the movie. So I trust them, but I think that's going to be the one thing that is going to be like a big thing coming out of that theater.
Yeah, definitely.
Clicking back and forth, I think her hair looks more closely related to Force Awakens, but her outfit is almost identical to
maybe that's
Last
what I
Jedi.
was thinking. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe they
So,
combined two clips.
I mean, that's always possible too. You know,
he has a lot. It's a big task. That might be the biggest thing he feels pressure on, honestly, because he knows his other characters well. Like, I think this Leia thing is maybe the thing he's like, man, I hope we really do this right.
But
yeah, it's weird because I we're talking about the mentality of going into this one different. How do you start any movie where you just know that one of the characters isn't even around anymore?
Yeah, I think
That's
the other
nuts.
thing that keeps sticking out to me is every time they do interviews and stuff, and this goes back to like last summer when they were doing interviews and like Kathleen was talking about certain bits and pieces about the production and JJ coming on and then actors and whatever. We keep hearing two words, magical and satisfying.
Yeah.
And those are the two words we keep hearing over and over and over again about this movie. So
like eating a Snickers in Disney.
Right. Right. While on the Millennium Falcon ride of Galaxy's Edge.
That sounds incredible.
I didn't know you like Snickers so much.
I like Snickers. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really important because at Celebration, JJ and Daisy, and I think someone else said, oh, it's satisfying. Fans are going to be satisfied.
Yeah. He
and
told
then
that
JJ
to E.T. too, right?
Yes.
He said the word satisfied. Yeah.
He said it to Ash. Yeah. He was like, it's going to be satisfying for fans. So I think that's super important to keep in our minds going into the next few months is like magical, satisfying, magical, satisfying.
Right. Yeah.
I think that off the reins of the Game of Thrones stuff with everybody saying, the big argument being of like, we don't like it when you subvert our expectations, stop doing that kind of thing. I wonder if, not that JJ learned from what happened in Game of Thrones, but maybe he learned about like Last Jedi, and there's other things that are probably happening in culture like Walking Dead or something, who knows,
Right.
where they're like, look, we don't want to make this a surprise twist ending. Like, we want to land the ship in the safest, best, most satisfying way possible. This is the end of the story, as anybody who saw any of the other movies would just, they're not diving deep into it and trying to figure out the pieces. They just go, this is the way it should end. And when it ends like that, they go, yes.
it's not the top spinning at the end of Inception.
Yeah,
At the end
it's
of
just
The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like how do you think this is going to end? Well, he gets the girl and they ride off into the sunset. And it's like that ending is a lot better than the dramatic storytelling of no, this is why the character had to die.
Right. So
it's like,
instead of Kira flying off and leaving Han on the beach, Han and Chewie get the Falcon and they fly off together.
Yeah.
That is a satisfying ending.
Yes. But leaving it open for more stories to be told.
Exactly. Makes all two happen.
All right, guys. So I think any final words about what you think? I guess summarize your points in terms of how you feel JJ is going to do things differently in episode 9 as opposed to how he handled it in TFA. Real quick.
I think he's more laid back and chill and ready to do things he wants to do.
He's like a chill bro. I just came
Chill
up with
bro.
that.
No, I think he's confident going into this movie. He's going to end it in a satisfying way that everyone's going to be happy and everyone's going to have their one moment that they love. And the actors were more confident and comfortable going into this movie. And he's going to wrap everything up with a nice bow.
Yeah,
Nice.
doubling down on that. That's exactly it. I think a big thing that is always great in film is setup and payoff. And he does a lot of setup and people worry about his payoff. And I think that JJ is a I'll show you kind of guy. Like, you don't think I can do Star Wars? I'll do Star Wars. And he does it exceptionally well. And then you don't think I can do payoffs? Let me just keep using the word satisfying because it's going to be a big payoff for you.
Guys?
So, guys.
Go ahead, Jen.
I think I agree with all that. I think it's one of those things where he doesn't feel that like the chains are off. Like he doesn't need to prove anything to anybody, and he doesn't need to prove that Star Wars is back. All that stuff is gone, and now all he has to do is make a good Star Wars movie. And I think having that pressure off to prove to people that they can do it again is very freeing for him. And having the opportunity to finish off these arcs for the characters that he created with Larry Kasdan is probably the satisfying part for him when he keeps using that word, because he probably had an idea of, he probably has a personal ownership of those characters like Kylo Ren and Rey and stuff. So if Colin Trevorrow took it and he's like, yeah, we're going to make them all dinosaurs, JJ was probably going to be like, oh God, like my characters, you ruined everything. But now he gets to be satisfied because he knows he gets to close this up with Chris Terrier's help. So
then there's this dinosaur that's like half dinosaur, half slugfish, half.
Who says that? So there's this lion who's, first of all, half lion. Like, what?
there's this human, and he's half human.
Yeah. Half human.
See, but that is the logic that Jurassic World has.
Yeah.
Is so there's this thing, it's like half of that, but then like the majority of it is like a slugfish, and then there's a spider, and then we're gonna add a little blowfish to it, and then also it's green.
Yeah. I mean that's probably not far off at all for the next one. I'm sure the Jurassic World. So Star Wars is in better hands, and we could thank JJ for that for sure. So, but we're all in here, and I think whether he's clearly making the movie differently than he did TFA, but I think in a very good way. And as James was saying, and Lacey, satisfied is a big word here, and I think we all will by the end. So let us know what you guys think in the comments about what we discussed in terms of JJ's comments and how we think that interprets how he's going to be making this final movie compared to what he had to do with the deck stacked against him, the pressure of bringing Star Wars back with The Force Awakens. Anything that we didn't bring up, any good points, let us know in the comments, because oftentimes you guys bring things up and we're like, oh, we should have talked about that. So thanks for listening, but we're not done yet, guys. As Kylo Ren once said, we're not done yet. So we're going to send it over to... he did say that. We're going to play Who Are You next
I know,
week.
it was right after you said, we're not done yet, as Kylo Ren once said. We're not done yet.
Little Austin Powers. Please allow myself to introduce myself. I'm half human, but I'm a human. So we're going to send it over. Now that we're getting the laughs going, it's time to send it over to Lacey now so we can hear from you guys in our segment we like to call Resistance Transmission. So Lacey, what happened this week?
All right, guys, it's time for Resistance Transmissions. So how this works is every week, John goes to the Twitters and puts up a crazy, wacky situation that he thinks is hilarious.
Yep.
And then you guys give your answers. And I don't read them ahead of time. I read them live. I don't even know what the scenario is. So let's do this.
I actually have to. Do you have the scenario? I didn't put it in the notes. Oh, you
Oh,
have it?
It's on there. No?
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Okay, so the scenario is, say the Game of Thrones creators are holding Star Wars auditions. Okay. To remain separate from Game of Thrones, they won't cast any Game of Thrones actors or actresses.
How dare they?
So some try to arrive in disguises, but get caught. Who gets recognized and how do they get discovered? This is a good one. Tricky, but good. All right.
Now, I had to preface this because you guys haven't watched Game of Thrones. You may need to be a Game of Thrones fan to understand some of these. Just bear with us, though, because you guys give some cool answers.
He's saying that because I've never watched Game of Thrones.
Well, neither is James, yeah.
So the first one is Mike Sellers at PUK32 Ellers. Puke Sellers. Puke 32 Sellers. Okay, so next, he says Amelia Clark shows up dressed as Kira. Subtle.
There you go.
Subtle.
That's how you get it done.
Next is Joshua B at Dark Glucosa, and he said Amelia Clark arrives in Hoth gear, riding a tauntaun. A fun cameo as an extra is all she wants. When asked to remove her headgear, she's recognized, yelling, "Freeze!" In Valerian, the tauntaun collapses on her instead. When you play the game of Star Wars, you win or lose. I don't...
You know what's funny? This is my friend from work, and he came in and he explained this to me, and I'm like, I still don't know that I get it.
Yeah, so
but he
Valerian is a
gave me
language
the whole
in-
breakdown.
Yeah, it's a language in Game
dragon?
of Thrones.
Is it dragon language?
So instead of saying
I think it might be-
fire in Valerian to the dragons, she says freeze to the tauntauns in Valerian.
Yeah.
So there's like all these weird, like, you have to know Game of Thrones references here.
Yeah.
John's going through this going, yeah, I should have picked it. Okay, next is Scott Gibson. Hi, Scott. Love Scott.
Hey.
At Scott Gibby. He says Kit Harington shows up and starts his audition with, "She is my queen. I don't want it," and leaves. Since at Johnny Hoey is the only one that watches, he might be the only one that gets this joke. Accurate.
So I assume then Kit Harington shows up and says, "She's not my queen, and I do want it."
No, he. So in Game of Thrones, like this whole
Oh
season.
my God, everyone, we have to explain what the season is. I'm moving on. Okay, Josh at AKA
Scott, sorry, I tried.
Jubacus at Jubacus. Hey, Josh.
Hey.
He says Drogon, the dragon from Game of Thrones, shows up in a Wookiee costume. He says he has ideas with how they could integrate a Wookiee into their movie. D&D stare at the dragon. Yak hair cascading from his face. Yeah, that's going to be a no, Dragon.
That's not going to work out, Dragon.
I only like that because I think he's making a Randy Jackson American Idol joke here.
Like
it's
no
gonna,
dog?
It's going to be a no from me, dog. Next is Andrew Espinal at I Drew on You. The Drew's on caps. He says Nicolaj Coster-Waldau.
Yep.
Oh, that's quite the name. Jamie Lannister, who they think is Anthony Davis. Is he saying Daniels?
He's trying to say Anthony Daniels.
Oh, as 3PO due to his golden hand. Is that because they stuck his hand in gold?
Well done. So this guy had his hand cut off, and he had to have a golden hand, so he's making because of the red arm joke with 3PO using Game of Thrones.
Guys, I'm so sorry.
John
Next
loves
time we
this Game of
won't do
Thrones.
any more Game of Thrones stuff. Like, this is the only time this is going to happen.
I have a news flash for Lacey. Game of Thrones is one of the most watched TV series in the history of television, so you're just the only one not getting it. Everyone out there is laughing at these right now.
Next is
John Hoey circa a couple months ago. We're not a Marvel podcast.
Yeah, we can't talk about Marvel at all. We're not a Marvel
We're having a
podcast.
deep discussion. It's freaking
Next is
resistant
Mike
transmissions.
at Forces of
Apes.
Progeny at Forces of Progeny. He says, quote, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." And he shows a picture of Kit Harington dressed as Dani. He even has fake boobs in. It's kind of funny. Next is Star Wars Dexterous at Star Wars_Dex. Yes, I know this is Don. You don't have to put that in parentheses, John. He says Peter Dinklage and Gwendolyn Christie. Peter sits on Gwendolyn Christie's shoulders while wearing a huge raincoat.
That's old school humor right there.
That is. And last but not least is Dekind Awakens at _kind_awakens.
Oh, the guy who gave me this?
Oh, it must be
My
so
JJ
nice to like
Abrams
just
phone
steal
company?
things from the group, John. He says Peter Dinklage came in disguised as a stormtrooper, to which Benioff and Weiss asked, "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?"
I think I got one of these.
That's a good one. Well done, Mark. So guys, if you want to be on the show and not talk about Game of Thrones, you can follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Every week, John will not put up a scenario about Game of Thrones. He'll be putting up a Star Wars scenario. And you give your most creative answers, and I read them on the show. So, back to you, John.
If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw I took JJ out of the mystery box. Hey guys, it's JJ. The show's almost over. All right, so thank you guys for that. For you guys who are Game of Thrones fans and understand the humor on that, thank you. Lacey's a little grumpy. That's all right.
I'm not grumpy.
Goodness gracious. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and of course, if you're watching on YouTube, head to, again, like I said, patreon.com/resistance broadcast if you want to check out our exclusive content. If you want to support the podcast, obviously, we have 5 tiers. Check it out. We actually have a featured video coming up soon where we're going to showcase what we've been doing over there. So if you are interested and want to get a preview, we'll be sending that out to everybody to check out. But of course, head to the website and check things out. If you feel like every week someone's joining the Patreon page, and we've been growing greatly. So it's been so awesome. Thank you guys so much. Make sure, of course, you head to StarWarsNewsNet.com. That is our website for your latest news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. Things are ramping up, so go every day to StarWarsNewsNet.com for all of your Star Wars info to stay up to date, because things are getting crazy. You can find me writing and editing over there, and you guys can also find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey. I like dad jokes. I tell dad jokes, but sometimes I also tweet about Star Wars and Yankees baseball. So there you go. James, when you're not tweeting about dad jokes yourself, what are you doing over there on Twitter, and where can people find you?
You can find me at Meyer Trunks, which is a Dragon Ball reference.
Oh, there it is.
It's old school.
That is old school.
Yep. And that's it. I don't do anything with my Twitter. I'm never on it. That's not true.
That is
I'm on it
not
all
true
the time,
at all.
talking Star Wars.
Right. All verified and such.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. People can find me at Lacey Gillerin. It's a magical Twitter account with satisfying tweets.
Magical.
Oh, I get it, because of J.J. Abrams.
I get it now. Very good, Lacey. Very good.
Dun-dun-dun.
That was, yeah.
All right, guys, that does it. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I hope you enjoyed the show. Leave a comment and hit us up on Twitter at RBATSWNN. Subscribe, follow, do all that stuff. Become a part of the whole entire Resistance broadcast experience. If you are new to the show, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, enjoy your weekends. And we'll be right back here with you Monday morning with another episode of the Resistance broadcast. See you around, kids.
Bye.